TechNet Saturday at 7 p.m. W5FC. W5FC.
Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? This is KF5PDS. My name is Billy, and I'll control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the # break in your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.880 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. And remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society discussion topic of the evening, Was Up, Space Exploration and Space History, Constellation of the Week, Space Launches of the Week, Recent Astronomical Discoveries, Visible Satellite Passages over the next couple of days, Astronomical Q&A, and our 73 round. Amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in, so this time I'll turn the net over to my alternate net control, Tom, KU5ICX, if you will do the check-in honors, please. Yes. I'm not sure what's going on. If anybody is on frequency, can y'all hear Tom? I'm just not hearing him, or He's just not on station.
85 PDS 105 BB. Billy, we can hear you fine, but I don't hear Tom. I heard a carrier, but nothing else. 105 BB.
I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing something on RF, so thanks N5BB for that report. I'll go ahead and start in case Tom has stepped away, and then when he gets back, he can help me out. Usually because of delay issues, I usually don't do check-ins, but I'll do my best to pick up. So let's start round one with low power and short time check-ins. So please come now slowly with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from this evening.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Lima Lima, Huey Richardson.
Kilo India 5, Papa Golf Mike, Travis in Garland, short time.
Whiskey 9, Victor Papa Uniform, Sam in Allen, Texas.
So let me get those. That's KF5 TLL, Huey and Richardson, KI5 TGM, Travis and Garland, short time, and W9 ZPM, Sam in Allen, Texas. Sam, did I get your call sign right?
Slight correction there. It's Whiskey 9, Victor Papa Uniform. Victor Papa Uniform.
Copy that. Whiskey 9, Victor, Papa, Uniform, Sam and Allen. Thanks for that correction. Is there anyone else low power short time? If so, please come now with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from.
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot India, WB4MFI, Ted Dallas Low Power.
Kilo Golf 5, Uniform Foxtrot Romeo, KG5 UFR, Jacob, Farmers Branch, low power.
This is Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform Sierra, Gus, far, far northeast Dallas. Power 4 watts.
Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray. Tom, Louisville.
Okay, the net recognizes WB4MFI, Ted Dallas Low Power, KG5 UFR, Jacob Farmers Branch Low Power, and W5GUS Gus, far, far northeast Dallas Low Power, and Tom, KE5ICX, Tom in Louisville. Tom, are you able to pick up and run with the rest of the check-ins? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So far with yourself, we've got 7, and with me, we've got 8. So If you're able to pick up and do general check-ins, I would appreciate it. Would you be able to do that for me?
Yes, I can do that. Are you hearing me okay? KE5I6. The answer is yes. I'll go ahead and get started. I see an echo line. All right, I will take additional check-ins. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch. So 1 Golf Bravo Delta, Guy in Forney. November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu, Whiskey, J, Norwegian.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda in DeSoto.
Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey, Victor Lima, James in Carrollton.
Kilo India 5, Hotel Yankee Romeo, Edward in Dallas.
Kilo India 5, Golf Romeo Hotel, Melissa, Third City.
Additional check-ins, please.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill in Irving.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda in DeSoto.
Kilo Alpha 5, Zulu, Tango Papa, Kyle, Louisville.
All right, let me go ahead and get those. There was a double, so I do not think it resolved itself. I've got N5BB, Mr. Bill in Irving. I've got Brenda, WB50ZL in DeSoto. KAZTP, that's Kyle in Louisville, who's returned to the roof. Any additional check-ins? I'm sure I missed somebody.
This is Kilo India 5, Kilo Tango Zulu, Philip, White Rock Creek, checking in on RF as well as YouTube.
Very good. I've got KI5KTZ, Philip and White Rock Creek. Yep, I see you over there, and you're checking in there. So I can only give you one check-in, one vote per customer. Okay, let me go over to Echolink. I'll give you extra time. I think there are a few people, not many, but a few people over on Echolink that have not yet checked in over air. So if you'd like to join us, Echolink, I'll give you extra time. Please come with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from. Echolink only.
Kilo India 5 Golf Romeo Hotel. Not sure if you heard me earlier. Melissa, Surf City. This is Kilo 5, Kilo Tango X-Ray Kelly in Quinlan.
All right, I'll go ahead and take those check-ins. I'm going to give one person pass, of course. I've got, let's see, K5KTX, Miss Kelly in Quinlan. I got KI5GRH, that's Melissa. Says Third City. I saw her today. I know she's somewhere here in Dallas or Mesquite or somewhere, but I got her down just in case she's listening. I'll open it up to anybody who'd like to join us this evening. Please come now with your call sign, phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. Well, we've got 22 check-ins at this point, so I'll turn it back to you, Ms. Billy. This is KE5ICX.
Great, thanks very much, Tom. And welcome to all who have checked in on Skynet. All right, let's get started with general announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. If you have an announcement, please come now with your call sign.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
K5 KTX.
All right, first up for announcements is NT5TM. Tony, it was great seeing you at the Turkey Trot. What announcements do you have for us this evening?
Good evening, Billy. Well, you hit that right on the head. The most important announcement I can give is that if you enjoyed participating in Turkey Trot, the Dallas Marathon is the event for you. It's a longer day, but it's a big event. You'll get to work with, 100 plus other hams, thousands and thousands of volunteers and participants. It's a big thing. It's the D-Day of ham radio in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and it's coming up on Sunday, December 11th. If you are ready to volunteer, which you should be because everyone at Turkey Trot did a good job, we're all ready for the marathon. Look for Dallas Marathon Comms in your favorite search engine, or go to tinyurl.com/Dallas with a capital D, Marathon with a capital M, Comms, Communication, Charlie Oscar, Mike Sierra with a capital Charlie. Please sign up. We need your help. We're short of people. It takes a lot of folks to make this event safe and successful, and we don't have too much time left. So, again, Turkey Trot is a great event, and you can have a second great event in a row at the Dallas Marathon. In the shorter return, we do have the Afterglow movie discussion featuring Little Lost Robot tonight at about 10:30 p.m. and a GeekNet tomorrow night at 7. Anything you like to talk about that makes you geek out: beekeeping, stamp collecting, power strips. Do they catch on fire or not? If you'd like to geek out about it, it's welcome tomorrow on this repeater at 7. Then there are two important Dallas Amateur Radio Club events coming up. The December meeting will be on Tuesday, December 6th. It's a pizza party. Bring your favorite pizza or pizza accessory. More details at w5fc.org. And then the Winter Diner. The Winter Diner. This is our winter banquet. It's at 6:30 p.m. in the Sunny Bryan Steak, Campbell Road in Richardson. We have to be out of there at 8:30, so you got to be there at 6:30 sharp. You don't have to bring a pizza because it's a steakhouse. They'll sell you food. Or it's a barbecue place. They'll sell you food. Come on out. We're going to have great door prizes and great fun. So lots of good December stuff coming up, and I hope to see you at all of these events. You know, the marathon's pretty early, but the Winter Diner is pretty late. One or the other is going to suit your sleep schedule pretty well. NT5TM, back to net.
Great, thanks very much, Tony. Tony, could you relay one more time the date for the Winter Diner? I think I missed it.
Absolutely. It's Thursday, December 15th. Thursday, December 15. It's an odd day. We don't do many club things on Thursdays other than Turkey Trot. It's Thursday, December 15 at 6:30 p.m. at the Sunny Bryan Steakhouse in, Sunny Bryan's Barbecue. I must have steak on the brain. I keep getting the name wrong. Sunny Bryan's Barbecue in Richardson on Campbell Road. NT5TM.
Great. Thank you so much, Tony. I've got it now. All right, next up for announcements is Kelly, K5KTX. Good evening, and what announcements do you have for us this evening?
Thank you, Billy. This is K5KTX. So I have a couple of things. The first one is that one of the number one questions that I get asked at different astronomy events that I participate in is, can I recommend any good apps on your phone, on your smart device that are related to astronomy? And there are lots of them. I probably have 20 or 30, probably almost as many as I do of my weather apps. And so there are some really great ones, lots of that are free. They have lots of great information, but my favorite app, and I am in no way affiliated with this company at all, I have met the creators of this app, but I just wanted to relay this information in case you've been waiting for this, but Sky Safari 7, which has different levels. They have a basic level, which is, I think it's free, but they also have a plus version and a pro version, both for iOS and Android. They are doing their usual Black Friday and Cyber Monday sale, and this is the biggest sale that they've ever had. Usually they'll do a 50% off. This time it is 65% off through Monday for both Sky Safari Pro and the Plus. I use the Pro all the time. It is definitely a great app. It really helps me find things. I can set up my telescope, my location, my finder. I use a Telrad finder, so it has the little Telrad circles. Really helps me find things in the night sky, and a highly recommended app for astronomy. And you can record your observations. You can look into the future to see what events are coming up. You can also go into the past if you wanted to see what objects were in the sky the day you were born. You could do that. So there's some really neat features to this. And again, 65% off through Monday. And the second announcement that I wanted to bring, I don't think anybody was going to cover this. I looked through the script to see if anybody was going to cover it, but I didn't see it. There is a brand new documentary. It is a full-length feature film, an hour and 44 minutes, that was just released 2 days ago on Amazon Prime. It is an Amazon-produced movie. It is called Goodnight Oppie, and it is about the Spirit and Opportunity rovers that were on Mars for a long, long time. It is terrific. I watched it this afternoon. I think I probably needed some Kleenex to watch it. It was very, very good. Highly recommended. 10 stars out of 5. And just to let you know, if you hadn't seen that announcement, it is now available on Amazon Prime. It's free for you to stream and to watch. And again, it's a highly recommended documentary. So that's all I've got. This is K5KTX. Back to you, Billy.
Great. Thank you very much, Kelly. I did not know that was out there. I saw something that said Goodnight Oppie. It was a post. It was a hashtag, but I didn't realize it was a documentary. So that's really cool. That's awesome. Does anybody else have any announcements for this evening's net? If so, please come now with your call sign. Okay, not hearing anything, so I'm going to go ahead with a few announcements of my own. The AMSAT Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 2 nets available to Dallas residents on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time. You'll need Echolink installed and you registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website at www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. The Dallas AMSAT Net East, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.880 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9. Tom N5HYP is net control. All are welcome to check in. First Tuesday of the month is the DARC Club Night, so there's no AMSAT East on that night. Dallas AMSAT Net West is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.140 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9 and a positive offset. The DARC hosts several Monday night nets. First Monday of the month is Ham Fixin's Net. This is a great net to get recipes, share recipes. If you have a question or anecdote about food, please bring it to Ham Fixin's Net. Second Monday of the month is MCOM 101, Emergency Communications. On the third Monday of the month, come back for a second helping of Ham Fixin's Net. And as Tony mentioned, fourth week Monday is GeekNet. News of the weird, all things geeky, interesting, bring it to GeekNet. And if there's a fifth Monday, it is a surprise net. If we told you what it is, it wouldn't be a surprise. On-air participation is encouraged. Tuesdays, AMSAT East at 8 p.m., question and answers, info and news for amateur satellites. And on Fridays, CERT City simulation at 8 o'clock. Learn about emergency radio communications via CERT-trained amateur radio operators. Melissa, KI5GRH, is usually the net control. Visit the most disaster-prone city in the universe every Friday. CERT City, all are welcome. And Saturdays is the Night of Nets with TechNet from 7 to 8 p.m. And, of course, at 9 p.m., Skynet. And as Tony mentioned, following Skynet is the Afterglow Movie Net. We pick a movie, we watch it during the week, and we come back the next Saturday and discuss it on Afterglow Movie Net. More about Afterglow in a few seconds. The first and third Sundays is the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air. And daily there is the ARRL Net National Traffic System Training Net every night at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. All are welcome to check in on any or all of these nets. And as I mentioned, following Skynet, and as Tony mentioned also, there is the Afterglow Movie Net at 10:30. Usually about 5 minutes after we wrap up Skynet, we move into the Afterglow Movie Net. So at this time, I'm going to turn the net over to Tom, KE5ICX, for tonight's Afterglow info from KF5 PDS.
Well, thank you again, Billy, and this is KE5ICX, and I pride myself on being incredibly accurate with these descriptions. So here we go. Dr. Susan Calvin and Mathematical Director Peter Bogart looked at the police report. An NS2, or Nestor robot, had gone missing. To them, this was a problem, especially for Bogart, who, as a mathematical director, knew, quote, the whole thing didn't add up. You knew that was coming, didn't you? They noticed a trail of oil leading down a hall and decided to follow their only lead, a sprung hydraulic line. But this was no ordinary runaway robot. This one was ordered through Wish, and everyone knew buying one of the fall-paw mechanical monsters on the cheap could result in erratic behavior, or at the very least, a robot supplied with run-down batteries. They tracked the hydraulic oil trail through a door and came across a room full of identical robots, all looking like NS2. How would they know which one had run away, and how would they capture it? The only thing they knew for sure was one robot's four-way flasher lights were flashing. This was a clue, they thought. Join us for our continued adventure in old TV. This is the last one for this month, Little Lost Robot from the British ABC series, Out of This World from 1962. This is episode 3, the only remaining episode from this series, hosted by Boris Karloff. It's tonight after this net at 10:30 p.m. This is KE5ACX, back to net control.
Great, thank you, Tom. And you can keep up with all DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website at w5fc.org. This is KF5PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. Chaz, KF5JHA, can you give us information about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas?
Thank you, Dr. Billy. There is no Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas general meeting in December due to the holidays. So the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas club meeting will be held on Friday, January 27th, 2023. The meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas and will also be held on Zoom. The featured speaker is Dr. Erica Ellingson from the University of Colorado, and her topic is going to be about prehistoric moon watchers. This sounds fascinating to me. Now, the Saturday night public observing sessions have begun again. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday nights so that there could be an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing stations. Unfortunately, there's not one tonight because of clouds, and there's not going to be another one, it doesn't look like, until January due to the holidays. But check the TASS website, texasastro.org, for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. Does anybody need a fill or need any detailed information? Hearing no inquiries, I return this back to our net control. Billy, it's all back to you. This is KF5JHA.
Great, thank you very much, Chaz. All right, next up is National Space Society events and activities. So at this time, I will turn the net over to Bill. N5BB, the net is yours.
Thank you, Billy. This is N5BB, November 5, Bravo, Bravo. I happen to be the membership director and member at large of the National Space Society North Texas chapter. If you have any interest in the National Space Society or our local chapter, you can ask questions by sending me an email at space@byram.net or n5bb@arrl.net. And Normally we have a chapter meeting on the second Sunday afternoon of each month. In December, we're going to instead do a holiday party. That's our normal thing to do. And the plan for it is to be at my house. So currently, unless anything changes, which is a possibility, because my house is not quite finished yet, the party will be on the afternoon of Sunday, September the 11th, starting at 3:30 p.m. This could change, and if you're a member of the National Space Society and want to attend our holiday party, again, you can send me an email at n5bb@arrl.net or space@byrom.net, byrom.net, and let me know. And I think that's it for now. We have no other short-term events coming up here the next week or two. This is the big event, of course, is going to be the International Space Development Conference. And that will be held at the end of May in 2023 in Frisco. Any questions, of course, contact me. Or look up on the web ISDC 2023. And you should find the website. That's all I've got. There are NSS North Texas Facebook page, and there's a website also. N5BB, it's all got. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Bill. And just want to throw out there that the National Space Society of North Texas has an active Facebook page. Just type National Space Society of North Texas into the search box and request access. You'll receive meeting reminders and club activities. All right, next up is discussion topic of the evening. So tonight I have chosen for discussion the Polaris program and the Polaris Dawn mission. So just some brief information about the Polaris program. It is a planned human spaceflight program organized by businessman and commercial astronaut Jared Isaacman. Isaacman, who commanded the first all-civilian Inspiration 4 spaceflight in September 2021, purchased flights from SpaceX in order to create the Polaris program. The first two flights will use the SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft, while the third flight is planned to be the first crewed Starship flight. Polaris Dawn, the first flight, will attempt the first private spacewalk. So Polaris Dawn is a planned private human spaceflight mission operated by SpaceX on behalf of Shift 4 Payments CEO Jared Isaacman, scheduled to launch no earlier than March 2023. The flight will be using the Crew Dragon capsule, and it is the first of 3 planned missions in a program named the Polaris program. It is planned to be the 9th crewed flight overall of the Crew Dragon. The crew, prime crew, is Mission Commander Jared Isaacman, Polaris program. This is his second space flight. Mission Pilot Scott Poteet, Polaris program. It is his first space flight. Mission Specialist 1, Sarah Gillis, first space flight. And Mission Specialist 2 and Medical Officer Anna Menon, this is her first space flight. So as I mentioned earlier, Jared Isaacman is an American entrepreneur, pilot, philanthropist, and commercial astronaut. He is the founder, CEO of Draken International, a private Air Force provider, and Shift 4 Payments, a payment processor. His missions were Inspiration 4, and his second mission will be Polaris Dawn. He has a total of 2 days, 23 hours, and 3 minutes in space. He was the commander of Inspiration 4, a private space flight using SpaceX's Crew Dragon Resilience, which launched from Kennedy Space Center in Florida on September 16, 2021. The crew returned to Earth on September 18, 2021, after orbiting 364 miles in altitude. The mission was part of a fundraiser for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, to which Isaacman pledged to donate $100 million. Isaacman will command the Polaris Dawn mission, the first private space flight in a series of missions named the Polaris program. Isaacman is currently undergoing commercial astronaut training at SpaceX. Scott Poteet is an American pilot retired from the U.S. Air Force. He is a collaborator and friend of Jared Isaacman, and Poteet is slated to fly on Polaris Dawn. Sarah Gillis is an American engineer who is scheduled to fly on Polaris Dawn. If the trip goes ahead as planned in early 2023, she'll become the youngest American to reach orbit. And Anna Menon will be Mission Specialist 2 and Medical Officer. Anna Menon is an American engineer, worked for NASA for 7 years before joining SpaceX, where she works as a lead engineer of space operations. So the Polaris Dawn will be a human space flight to orbit Earth with only private citizens on board. As I said, the crew will consist of Jared Isaacman, Scott Poteet, Sarah Gillis, and Anna Menon, who will spend up to 5 days in orbit. Mission plans include reaching an orbit higher than any previous Dragon mission and ultimately the highest Earth orbit ever flown by a crewed spacecraft with an initial apogee of 1,400 kilometers, breaking the record set by Gemini 11. The crew will conduct 38 science and research experiments to study the effects of spaceflight and space radiation on human health. The crew will also attempt the first commercial extravehicular activity, or EVA, with SpaceX-designed EVA spacesuits. The mission will also be the first test of Starlink's communications laser for communication with other spacecraft, potentially improving connection with the spacecraft. And that information comes to us straight from Wikipedia, but if you would like more information and just more specifics on the mission and spacecraft and things, there is a Polaris Dawn website called polarisprogram.com where you can visit and learn more. So there is just a brief update, and we'll be keeping our eyes on this program in early 2023. So there's some information about the Polaris program and Polaris Dawn mission. This is KFI-PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. At this time, I'm going to turn the net back over to Tom, KE5ICX. If you would please do a check-in round, and after check-ins, I give you permission to turn the net directly over to Chaz for his Was Up segment. So this is to KE5ICX from KF5-PDS.
All right, thank you, Billy. This is KE5ICX. Let me go ahead and get a couple of check-ins we currently have on, actually on the YouTube. They just couldn't get into the repeater. I got WD5BPX. That's Bobby. He's usually in Wills Point, but he is down in El Dorado, Arkansas. I've been there a number of times. So welcome, Bobby. And then KG5OMR, that's Marcia in Dallas. She's not on the radio, but she is over on YouTube. I'll take additional check-ins. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from. All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead and send it over to Chaz, KF5JHA, with his Was Up section from KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Billy. if anyone ever sees the printed word that I do, you'll know that I don't know how to spell, because "was up" isn't spelled with proper English. Yeah, this is Chaz, KF5JHA. My degree's in astrophysics. I work at the Astrophysics Labs and Geology Labs at the Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus, and we call this segment of Skynet "Was Up." Slide Master, that would be Tom. Master, slide number 2, please. On November the 23rd, the moon was new, so the current phase of the moon is a waxing crescent. On November the 30th, the moon will be at first quarter. On December the 7th, the moon will be full. And there's something else that's going to happen on December 7th. We'll get to that in a few moments. On December 11th, the moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth, at a distance of 405,869 kilometers. The moon is at third quarter on December the 16th. New moon happens on December 23rd. And on December 24th, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 358,270 kilometers. Master, slide number 3. Now, the November Orionid meteor shower will peak on the night of November the 27th, 28th. That'll be tomorrow night, with a handful of meteors per hour. The Monoceros, name, isn't it? There's a constellation called Monoceros. The Monoceros peak on the night of December 8th and 9th with a handful of meteors per hour. On the same night, Sigma Hydrates peak with about 7 meteors per hour. The Geminids, one of the major meteor showers during the year, peaks on the night of December 13th and 14th with up to 150 meteors per hour. That could be more than one every 30 seconds. Wow. More information about meteors can be found at the International Meteor Organization, IMO.net, or the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org. Slide Master, slide number 4, please. November the 28th, the moon and Saturn will be in conjunction in the southern evening sky. Slide Master, slide number 5. It was the end of the summer in 2003. It was toward the end of August, but I don't remember the exact date. But a group of over 30 task members had gathered at the Richland College campus with telescopes to have a public observing session to look at Mars. Mars was at its closest than it's been since the September 24th of the year 57,617 BC. That was clear, and the news media must have done a great job of getting the word out. There were no less than 25 people in line at each telescope for almost, the several hours of the event. I wasn't in Dallas during the Halley's Comet craze, but I'll bet it must have been equal to the Halley's Comet craze the Mars event was. Slide Master, slide number 6, please. About every 26 months, both Mars and Earth are on the same side of the solar system. That means they're close to each other about every 26 months. NASA uses this to their advantage by often sending spacecrafts to Mars about every 26 months when the two planets are close. Slide Master, slide number 7. Position is when an object is opposite the Sun, which is 180 degrees apart in right ascension, in the sky as viewed from the Earth. If all the planets' orbits were circular, and if they were all in exactly the same plane as the Earth's orbital plane, then the moment a planet is opposite the Sun in the sky would be the same as the closest approach. Now, since this is not the case, opposition and closest approach are usually a few days apart. December the 7th, 2022 is the opposition of Mars, while November the 30th is the closest approach. Slide Master, slide number 8. Now, all the planets, including Mars and Earth, orbit the Sun in elliptical orbits and are not precisely in the same orbital plane. I just talked about that. Mars is closer to the Sun during its perihelion and is further away from the Sun in its aphelion. The same is true for the Earth. Now, if near its perihelion and Earth is close to its aphelion, they're on the same side of the solar system, then the planets can be really close. This happens every 15 to 17 years. The very closest the planets Mars and Earth can come to each other is 33.9 million miles. Now, that's just an ideal situation. Slide master, slide number 9. Back on August the 28th, 2003, the distance between the Earth and Mars was only 34.65 million miles. The last close approach, Mars and Earth, that was on October the 6th, 2020. We were separated by 38.6 million miles. This close approach isn't that close. We're only going to be about 50.6 million miles away from Mars. Next really good close approach will be in the year 2035. It will be in the year 2287 on August the 28th, for when Mars will be closer than it was in the year of 2003. So put that on your calendar, August 28th, year 2287. Master, slide number 10, please. New TASS public observing session, formerly scheduled for next Saturday, is canceled due to the TASS Holiday Awards Banquet. So the closest approach of Mars, you're going to have to grab your own telescope and head outside sometime over the next couple of weeks. Master slide number 11. Again, on November the 30th, Mars will be at its closest approach to the Earth, and on December the 7th, Mars will be at opposition. Master slide number 12, please. On December the 1st, Moon and Jupiter are in conjunction in the southern evening sky. They're only going to be about 3 degrees apart from each other. Should be a pretty interesting sight. Slide master, slide number 13. On December the 7th, the Moon occults the planet Mars in the evening sky. An occultation is usually when the Moon blocks or occults a star or an asteroid or a planet. Occultations of stars by the Moon happen almost on a nightly basis. But the occultation of a planet by the Moon is a rare occurrence. The planet Mars will disappear behind the Moon at 8:53:47 seconds Central Standard Time on December the 7th. And Mars will reappear about an hour and a half later. Well, not an hour and a half later. At 9:28:01 Central Standard Time. These times are the predictions for Brookhaven campus of Dallas College. Times will vary depending on other locations. If you live close to Kelly, I just gave her the predictions of her location. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 14. There's no TASS general meeting in December due to the holidays, so the next TASS club meeting will be held on Friday, January 27th. Meeting will be held at, that's on the year 2023. The meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas and also held on Zoom. Future speaker will be Dr. Erica Ellingson and from the University of Colorado, and her topic's going to be prehistoric moon watchers. As public observing sessions have started, and to get more information about meetings and public observing sessions, go to texasastro.org for up-to-date information and details. Slide master, slide number 15. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have a question or need a fill on any of the information I've covered? Or maybe you just have a general astronomy question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question. DJ is asking over here on Echolink if there's not going to be a general meeting for TASS. Is there a private meeting? And I told him there was a private meeting, and PFCs were invited as well. Yeah. Okay, slide master, slide number 16. So as the moon waned at the beginning of November, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for a world that's the only one where humans live. Well, at least for the moment. Until next week, well, actually, I'll be doing another Skynet segment in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5, JJ, back to our net control. I believe that is Billy. F5 PDS. It's all yours again.
Great, thank you very much, Chaz. And we have a lot of cool astronomical events to look forward to, so thank you very much. Next up is space exploration and space history. So at this time, I'll turn the net over to Brenda at WV5OZL. The net is yours.
Thank you, Billy. News. The astronaut Snoopy balloon is seen floating along in Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade on Thursday, November 24th, 2022, in New York City. The astronaut Snoopy balloon is flying in New York City at the same time that Snoopy also flies around the moon in the Orion spacecraft as a zero-gravity indicator for the Artemis 1 mission. Snoopy has a long history in space. The Snoopy cap, or communication cap, is part of a spacesuit worn by American astronauts on their head and incorporating an audio headset for communication. The cap is nicknamed after the Peanuts character, whom his black and white paneling resembled. Its NASA designation is Communications Carrier Assembly. The Snoopy cap includes 2 earphones and 2 microphones to tolerate failure of a single unit. Artemis update. Flight controllers in the White Flight Control Room at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston successfully performed a burn to insert Orion into a distant retrograde orbit by firing the Orbital Maneuvering System engine for 1 minute, 28 seconds at 4:52 p.m. CST, November 25th, propelling the spacecraft at 363 feet per second. Shortly before conducting the burn, Orion was traveling more than 57,000 miles above the lunar surface. Might be a typo. It might be 57 miles. I'm not sure. Marking the furthest distance it will reach from the moon during the mission. While in lunar orbit, flight controllers will monitor key systems and perform checkouts while in the environment of deep space. Ingenuity, Mars's helicopter Ingenuity has performed its shortest ever flight, the first after a major software update that will allow the little chopper to land more safely and navigate over rugged terrain. Ingenuity's 34th flight, which took place on Tuesday, November 22nd, lasted only 18 seconds and saw the helicopter briefly hover after takeoff above Mars's surface before landing just 16 feet away from its starting point. The flight, the first since September 29th, was the first tryout of a new software system that was beamed to Ingenuity from Earth to improve its ability to operate in the rugged terrain that its parent Perseverance rover is currently exploring. So we have some astronaut birthdays. First, James Dutton, born November 20th, 1968. He flew on STS-131. Henry Hartsfield, November 21st, 1933. Flew on STS-4, 41D, and 61A. Ian Bluford, November 22nd, 1942. He was on missions STS-8, 61A, 39, and 53. Owen Garriott, born November 22nd, 1930. He was on Skylab 3 and STS-9. And finally, Richard Arnold, November 26, 1963. Missions STS-119 and Soyuz MS-08 Expedition 5556. Week in space history. Skylab 4 on November 22nd, 1973, It was the first Thanksgiving in space. Skylab 4 astronauts Gerald Carr, Edward Gibson, and William Pogue celebrated after a grueling 6.5-hour spacewalk. The first part of their spacewalk was spent deploying experiments and replacing film in the solar observatory. The remainder of the time was used to repair a malfunctioning antenna. The crew reported that the food was good, but slightly bland. The quality and type of food consumed was rigidly controlled because of their strict diet. Although the crew would have preferred to use more condiments to enhance the taste of the food, and the amount of salt they could use was restricted for medical purposes, by the third mission, the NASA kitchen had increased the availability of condiments, and salt and pepper was in liquid solutions. Granular salt and pepper brought aboard by the second crew was little more than air pollution. After a 10-day trip to the moon and back, Apollo 12 splashed down in the Pacific on November 24, 1969, with Pete Conrad, Dick Gordon, and Al Bean on board. They were successfully recovered and placed in quarantine on board the USS Hornet. Thanksgiving happened on November 27th of that year while they were in quarantine. Presumably, their meal was far better than space food. Lastly, on November 22nd, 2014, Expedition 42 launched to the ISS aboard Soyuz TMA-15M. The mission included scientific experiments to find the answer to life, the universe, and everything. And of course, the parody photo of the crew was a takeoff of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That is all I have. Back to Net, WB50ZL.
Great. Thanks, Brenda. All right, next up is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. But before we go to that, I'd like to return to Tom, KE5ICX. If you'll do another check-in round, see if there are any folks out there that would like to check in, and then I give you permission to turn it directly over to Chaz after the check-in round. So this is to KE5ICX from KF5PDS.
Very good, Ms. Billy. This is KE5ICX. I'll take additional check-ins. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from.
Hello, Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth.
We picked up one more, KB9SOK, Sean in Fort Worth. Welcome, Sean. Okay, back to Chaz, KF5JJ from KE5ICX.
Tom, and thank you, Billy. Of course, all of you have heard me tell you this before, but Tom is our slide master. If you're going on to the video version, he runs the slideshow. Yeah. Slide number 17, in fact. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Thus, there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year, out of the 88 total constellations. So Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. And in her honor, we have continued the tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is actually two constellations, Sculptor, the Sculptor's Workshop, and Phoenix, a very special bird. Slide Master, slide number 18, please. Yes, everyone get ready, because these are the jokes of the week. Did you hear about the explosion at the workshop where they made perfume? Blew up the old factory. We'll have to explain them. They're no good. What kind of music do elves like to listen to in Santa's workshop? Rap, of course. Especially this time of the year. Why did every tool in the workshop want to be with the sandpaper? Because it was super fine. Wait, I have three more. I've switched from the workshop to now Phoenix. What do you get when you touch a Phoenix? Bird degree burn. What's a Phoenix's favorite snack? Firecrackers. My days of misquoting popular idioms were over. I'm like a phoenix rising from molasses. That one, you're doing better than I am. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 19, please. Constellation of Sculptor was originally named the Sculptor Studio or the Sculptor's Workshop. The original name has since been shortened to just Sculptor. Alpha Sculptoris is a very, because Sculptor is a very dim constellation and its brightest star Alpha Sculptoris having a magnitude of only 4.3, and it has no proper name. The lack of bright stars in Sculptor is partly explained by the fact that the south galactic pole lies within the boundaries of the constellation and is therefore far away from the plane of the Milky Way as possible, making stellar density very low. Alpha Sculptoris is a blue-white giant star and is a variable star. It's located about 780 light years from the Earth. R Sculptoris is a variable star. Richard Allen, in his book Star Names by R, says that R Sculptoris is described as an intensely scarlet variable and one of the most brilliantly colored stars in the heavens, with a period variability between 5.8 to 7.7 magnitude over a 207-day period of time. Also a carbon star, which is another reason why it has a red color. Slide Master, slide number 20, please. NGC 253 is a great sculptor galaxy and is sometimes referred to as the silver coin or silver dollar galaxy. It was discovered by Carolyn Herschel in 1783 and is about 9.8 million light years away. Burnham's Celestial Handbook calls NGC 253 one of the most prominent in the sky for small telescopes and probably the most easily observed spiral, with the exception of the Great Andromeda Galaxy M31. That's saying something. Slide Master, slide number 21. NGC 300 is a spiral galaxy that's about 3.9 million light years away. It was discovered by James Dunlop using and was included in his 1827 catalog. NGC 300 is often called the Southern Pinwheel because it resembles M33 in Triangulum, which is also known as the Pinwheel Galaxy. Stephen James Amiro writes that NGC 300 is visible as a roundish glow in 7x35 binoculars from a clear, dark sky with unobstructed view of the southern sky. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 22, please. Phoenix. Constellation that lies in the southern sky. It's named after Phoenix, the mythical bird that rises from its own ashes. The mythical bird Phoenix is known to, as the sacred firebird. Phoenix constellation is easy for people to see from Australia and from South Africa during the southern hemisphere summer, but generally it can't be observed by anyone living north of the 40th parallel and lies pretty low in the sky for the observers north of the equator, but most of the constellation is above the horizon for us here in North Texas. Phoenix is the 37th constellation in size, occupying an area of 416 square degrees. Inca, it's Alpha Nisha, trying to do this genitive of this properly, is the brightest star in the constellation. It's a spectroscopic binary, approximately 85 light years in distance. The system has the combined stellar classification of a K.53b and its combined apparent magnitude of 2.377. It's pretty exact, isn't it? Those two components of the system orbit each other in a period of only 3,800 days, or about 10.5 years. The primary star, as spectral class indicates, is an orange giant. Eta Phoenix belongs to the spectral classification of G83, and it's a variable. It's a visual magnitude of 3.32. It's approximately 198 light years distance from our solar system. Now, it can vary down to about 4.0 or 4.1 magnitude. And there's two components of the star. One's at 4.0 and one at 4.1. The two stars orbit each other with a period of 168 years. Headmaster, slide number 23, please. Robert's Quartet is a compact group of galaxies in Phoenix, approximately 160 million light years in distance from the Sun, with a combined visual magnitude close to 13, which is kind of faint. The galaxies in the group are NGC 87, NGC 88, 89, and 92. They are located within an area spanning 75,000 light years. The four galaxies are in the process of colliding and merging. They were first discovered by English astronomer John Herschel in the 1830s. Slide master, slide number 24. The Phoenix cluster is one of the most massive galaxy clusters known. It is showing star formation that actively, at its highest rate ever recorded in a galaxy cluster, with the recent creation of 740 solar masses per year. Awesome. Most clusters aren't producing any stars. The cluster is also emitting more X-rays than any other known massive galaxy cluster. There is a supermassive black hole at the core of this system that is growing very rapidly and expanding at approximately 60 solar masses per year. Currently, it is at 20 billion times the mass of the Sun. Wow. F5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 25. A few more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellations of Sculptor and Phoenix. I've given you a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League, at last count, has 75 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. Now, if you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, you can earn an observing certificate and a pen in about a year. Slide number 26, and that is Ms. Carolyn's Constellations of the Week Sculptor, the Sculptor's Workshop in Phoenix, a very special Firebird. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and words on deep sky objects that I use, borrow, and steal for every Skynet. Also, at times, I use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Now, next time, I'll take a look at the famous Cassiopeia, the Queen. And this is KF5, JHA, sending it back to our net control. Billy, it's all yours, KF5 PDS. Good night, everyone. 73.
Great. Thank you very much, Chaz. This is KF5PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is space launches for this week. So at this time, I will return the net to Tom once again, KE5ICX. The net is yours.
And thank you, Billy. This is KE5ICX, and I have a number of different launches for this week. All the information I get comes from Spaceflight Now, a launch schedule from spaceflightnow.com. So the first one, November 27th, tomorrow, we have Polaris Cosmodrome in Russia. A Russian Soyuz rocket will launch the GLONASS-M navigation satellite for Russia's independent positioning, navigation, and timing network. The rocket will fly in the Soyuz 21B configuration with forgot upper stage. That's November 27th at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. On the 29th, there will be a launch of a Chinese Long March 2F rocket from Jiuquan, China, and will launch the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft with 3 Chinese astronauts to rendezvous and dock with the Chinese space station in low Earth orbit. This is China's 10th crewed space mission and the 4th to the Chinese space station. The crew members have not been officially named as of yet. On November 30th, there will be a launch from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch the first commercial lunar lander for iSpace, a Japanese-based company that competed for the Google Lunar X Prize and is now developing a series of robotic lunar landers. The first lunar lander, called iSpace Mission 1, was assembled in partnership with Ariane Group and carries a package of international and commercial payloads, including 2 small lunar rovers from the United Arab Emirates and Japan. The mission will target a landing in the Lucas Seminaria region of the Moon. NASA's Lunar Flashlight CubeSat will be a ride-share payload on this launch. Falcon 9's first stage booster will return to the landing zone 1 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. In early December, there'll be a launch of another Falcon 9, this one from Launch Complex 39A at Cape Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch 40 satellites into orbit for OneWeb, which is developing and deploying a constellation of hundreds of satellites in low Earth orbit for low-latency broadband communications. This will be the first launch of OneWeb satellites with SpaceX. Falcon 9's first stage booster will return to landing zone 1 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. And to be determined, we're waiting quite a while here to hear what happens, but from Starbase Boca Chica Beach in Texas, the SpaceX Super Heavy and Starship launch vehicle will launch on its first orbital test flight. The mission will attempt to travel around the world for nearly 1 full orbit, resulting in re-entry and splashdown of the Starship near Hawaii. In December, we also have a launch from ZLV Kourou, French Guiana, and Arianespace Vega C rocket will launch the Pleiades NEO 5 and 6 first observation satellites for Airbus. Pleiades NEO 5 and 6 are the 3rd and 4th members of the 4-satellite Pleiades NEO constellation built, owned, and operated by Airbus. In December, to be determined yet, from SLC-40, Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch another batch of Starlink Internet satellites. The Falcon 9's first stage booster will land on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. On December 12th, there will be a launch from SLC-4E at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. The SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch its Surface Water and Ocean Topography mission for NASA. SWOT is a science mission jointly developed by NASA and CNES, the French space agency, to measure how much water in Earth's oceans, lakes, and rivers. The Falcon 9's first stage booster will return to landing zone 4 at Vandenberg Space Force Base. And then finally, I have on December 14th, Arianespace will use an Ariane 5 ECA rocket designated VA-259 to launch the Galaxy 35 and 36 communication satellites for Intelsat and the MTG-11 weather satellite for EUMETSAT. Galaxy 35 and 36 are built by Maxar, will provide C-band television and video broadcast services over the United States. The first Meteosat third-generation imager satellite, MTG-11, will provide weather imagery over Europe for the European Weather Satellite Agency, EUMETSAT. Boy, you try and say that one. Back to net control. This is KE5ICX.
Great, thank you, Tom. Next up is recent astronomical discoveries. So at this time, I will return the net to Brenda, WB5OZL. The net is yours.
Thank you, Billy. This is WB5OZL. The title of this article is Astronomers Observe Intra-Group Light, the Elusive Glow Between Distant Galaxies. An international team of astronomers have turned a new technique onto a group of galaxies in the faint light between them, known as intragroup light, to characterize the stars that dwell there. The lead author of the study, published in MNRAS, Dr. Cristina Martinez-Lombila, from the School of Physics at UNSW Science, said, "We know almost nothing about intragroup light. The brightest parts of the intragroup light are about 50 times fainter than the darkest night sky on Earth. It is extremely hard to detect, even with the largest telescopes on Earth or in space. Using their sensitive technique, which eliminates light from all objects except that from the intragroup light, the researchers not only detected the intragroup light, but were able to study and tell the story of the stars that populate it. We analyzed the properties of the intragroup stars, no stray stars between the galaxy groups. We looked at the age and abundance of the elements that composed them, and then we compared those features with the stars still belonging to galaxy groups," said Dr. Martinez-Lombilla said. "We found that the intergroup light is younger and less metal-rich than the surrounding galaxies. Not only were the orphan stars in the intragroup light anachronistic, but they appeared to be of a different origin to their closest neighbors. The researchers found the character of the intragroup stars appeared similar to the nebulous tail of a further away galaxy. The combination of these clues allowed the researchers to rebuild the story of the intragroup light and how its stars came to be gathered in their own stellar orphanage. We think these individual stars were at some points stripped from their home galaxies, and now they float freely, following the gravity of the group," said Dr. Martinez-Lombilla. "The stripping, called tidal stripping, is caused by the passage of massive satellite galaxies, similar to the Milky Way, that pull stars in their wake. This is the first time the intragroup light of these galaxies has been observed. Unveiling the quantity and origin of the intragroup light provides a fossil record of all the interactions a group of galaxies has undergone and provides a holistic view of the system's interaction history," said Dr. Martinez-Lombilla. "Also, these events occurred a long time ago. The galaxies we're looking at are so far away that we're observing them as they were 2.5 billion years ago. This is how long it takes for their light to reach us. By observing events from a long time ago in galaxies so far away, the researchers are contributing vital data points to the slow-burning evolution of cosmic events." The researchers pioneered a unique technique to achieve this penetrating view. We developed a tailored image treatment procedure that allows us to analyze the faintest structures in the universe. It follows the standard steps for the study of faint structures in astronomical images, which implies 2D modeling and the removal of all light except that coming from the intragroup light. This includes all the bright stars in the images, the galaxies obscuring the intragroup light, and a subtraction of the continuum emission from the sky. What makes our technique different is that it is fully Python-based, so it's very modular and easily applicable to different sets of data from different telescopes rather than being just useful for these images. The most important outcome is that when studying very faint structures around galaxies, every step in the process counts, and every undesirable light should be accounted for and removed. Otherwise, your measurements will be wrong. Techniques presented in this study are a pilot encouraging future analyses of intergroup light. Dr. Martinez-Lombilla said, "Our main long-term goal is to extend these results to a large sample of group of galaxies. Then we can look at statistics and find out the typical properties regarding the formation and evolution of the intergroup light and these extremely common systems of groups of galaxies. This is key work for preparing the next generation of deep all-sky surveys, such as those to be performed with the Euclid Space Telescope and the LSST with the Vera C. Rubin Observatory. Back to net. Oh, this is from daily.com. So back to net. This is WV50ZL.
Great, thank you, Brenda. And next up is visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. We have a few minutes, so Tom, I'm going to throw it back to you if you want to give us some information from heavensabove.com. Let us know what visible satellite passages we have. So this is to KE5ICX from KF5PDS.
Thank you, Ms. Billy. And I just have a few of them tonight. I guess the sun is not as favorable this week for us over in the Dallas area, but here we go. The International Space Station has one pass, December 5th, minus 3.5 magnitude, 1837 in the evening, just right after sunset. It will reach its highest point, just out of the north-northwest, reach its highest point of 43 degrees at 1840. It then goes into shadow at 42 degrees at 1844, so about 20 seconds later. We have Tiangong 1, which we're actually it's just Tiangong now. I don't think there's any 1 or anything anymore, but since that and 2 have disappeared, returned to Earth, and this is actually the third Tiangong. There are 3 nights that are pretty good. We've got November 29th. That one is minus 2.1 magnitude at 1804 local time out of the southwest, reaches its highest point at 1807 at 75 degrees, and it falls to 1810 to the east-northeast. Then on November 30th, there is a pass minus 1.0 magnitude, 1842 again. Let's repeat, I guess, a little bit. Out of the west, it reaches its highest point at 1845, goes into shadow at 1845, 55 to the north, so it's almost directly overhead. Then we have on December 1st, this one will be a 0.6 magnitude at 1920. Out of the west now northwest, it will reach its highest. Whoops, let me do that one again. There's actually 2 passes. The better one is minus 1.7 magnitude at 1742 in the afternoon. Reaches its highest point at 1745 at 56 degrees out of the north-northwest, and it will fall to the northeast at 1748. That's it. That's all I got for you, Ms. Billy from KE5ICX.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Tom. Let's see, we're down to the 73 round. Any check-in stations with any other remarks or questions, or does anybody need any fills?
Kilo India 5, Kilo Whiskey Golf Cruise, Arlington, just checking in.
Okay, great, Tom. Let me throw it back to you, Tom, if you will get that check-in and do a final check-in round and give me a final count for this evening's net. I'd appreciate it. To KE5ICX from KF5TDS.
Thank you, Billy, and I probably should have done a check-in on that last round, on that last segment. So does anyone else want to check in? I do acknowledge KI5KWG, crews over in Arlington. Anyone else, last minute folks would like to check in, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. Okay, Well, I have 26 check-ins, including you and I, and the final check-in with Cruz. Back to you, Billy. This is KE5ICX.
Great, thank you. Copy that tonight we had 26 hams participating on the air, so thank you to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. So until next Saturday night, this is KF5PDS Billy, and I'll be closing the net at 22:30 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 7-3 everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. And stay tuned, in about 5 minutes, the Afterglow movie net will start up, where tonight's discussion will be Little Lost Robot from 1962. 7-3 everybody.
Thank you, Billy, and thank you for doing an excellent net. That went really well. She's right. We'll be back in 5 minutes, so go powder your noses, get your favorite beverage, and come on back. We'll be talking about this obscure but rather interesting episode from out of this world. So come back in about 5. This is KE5ICX. Okay, well, 5 minutes is up, and now it's time for the Afterglow Movie Net. So I'll be your net control this evening. By the way, I haven't asked if anybody wants to be net control lately. If you would like to be net control, just let me know. Maybe at the conclusion of this one. I've got everything all set up now, but I don't mind. I do plenty of net, so if you'd like to do the net again, just let me know. So this week, we've been doing, or this month, we've actually been doing television shows, and this is a very obscure one. I didn't even know it existed until I just kind of stumbled upon it. It's from 1962. The series was a limited series called Out of This World, a British television series on the ABC Weekend TV, and it was broadcast on ITV in 1962. Now, I'll tell you about this. Kind of interesting. It's a spin-off from the Armchair Theater Anthology series. Each episode was introduced by the actor Boris Karloff. Many of the episodes were adaptations of stories from science fiction writers, including Isaac Asimov, Philip K. Dick, and Clifford Stamach. The series is described by the British Film Institute as a precursor to the BBC science fiction anthology series Out of the Unknown, which was produced by Out of This World creator Irene Subik after she left ABC. Only one episode exists today, and it is available on DVD. It's also available online. If you had a chance to see it, you'll be able to talk about it tonight. I'll tell you a little about it. Let me look here and see. Ooh, there's a lot of stuff in here. I'll read some of it. I think you'll find it kind of interesting. The origins. The series creator, Irene Subik, joined ABC Television as a story editor on the anthology series Armchair Theater under producer Sidney Newman in 1960. Science fiction fan since her university days, Subik approached Newman during the summer of '61 with the notion of making a science fiction version of the Armchair Theater, similar to the Armchair's Mystery Theater spin-off that specialized in crime and mystery stories. Subik had already commissioned several science fiction scripts for Armchair Theater, such as the Omega Mystery and The Ship That Couldn't Stop. However, the production that acted as a template for what would become Out of This World was Murder Club, an adaptation of Robert Sheckley's short story, The Seventh Victim, starring Richard Briers. It aired under the Armchair Theater banner on December 3rd of 1961. Also around this time, the BBC had scored a notable hit with the science fiction thriller A for Andromeda. There's a whole fascinating thing about the history of what went on with this series. It does say here, although the series was judged a success, the departure of both Sidney Newman and Irene Subik to the BBC, there's a big dust-up apparently, meant that the second season was not made. However, while the BBC Subik devised and produced Out of the Unknown, another science fiction anthology series that, like Out of This World, concentrated mainly on an adaptation of short stories and novels, and ran for 4 seasons between '65 and '71. 2 Out of This World scripts, The Yellow Pill and Target Generation, were remade by Out of the Unknown in its 3rd season. Subik went on to become a noted television producer of series such as The Wednesday Plays, Play for Today, Playhouse, The Mind Beyond, and Rumpole of the Bailey, and instigated but did not produce the acclaimed adaptation of The Jewel and the Crown. As was common practice among British broadcasters at the time, almost all the episodes of Out of This World were wiped after broadcast, and only Little Lost Robot is known to survive, which was released on DVD by the British Film Institute in 2014. There were 13 episodes made. Total actually looks like maybe 14. There was one called The Martian that's listed probably as the pilot. And it was actually broadcast as part of Armchair Theater. All right, now on to the story from Little Lost Robot. This was actually made from a story by Isaac Asimov. And so I'm going to read the plot summary from the story. It follows very closely. So here we go. At Hyperbase, a military research station on an asteroid, scientists are working to develop a hyperspace drive, a theme that is explored and developed in several of Asimov's stories and mentioned in the Empire and Foundation books. One of the researchers, Gerald Black, loses his temper, swears at the NS2 or Nestor 10 robot, and tells the robot to get lost. Obeying the order literally, it hides itself. And then up to U.S. Robot's chief radio robo-psychologist, Dr. Susan Kelvin, and mathematical director Peter Bogert to find it. They even know exactly where it is, in a room with 20 other physically identical robots. This particular robot is different, as earlier models on the station had attempted to rescue humans from the type of radiation that humans could actually stay in for a while, but would destroy the robot almost immediately. It and all the other NS series robots produced for the station had its first law of robotics, modified that no robot may injure a human being, normal or through inaction, although the human being to come to harm had been omitted. Therefore, it could stand by and allow the human to be hurt as long as it plays no active part in it. In Little Lost Robot, the Frankenstein complex is again addressed. The robot must be found because people are still afraid of robots, and if they learn that one had been built with a different first law, there would be an outcry, even though the robot is still incapable of directly harming a human. However, Dr. Calvin adds further urgency by postulating a situation whereby the ultimate law could allow the robot to harm or even kill a person. The robot could drop a weight on a human below, and it knew it would catch it before it injured the potential victim. Upon releasing the weight, however, its altered programming would allow it to simply let the weight drop, since it would have played no further active part in the resulting injury. After interviewing every robot separately and going down several blind alleys, Dr. Calvin worries desperately that the robot may be gaining a superiority complex that might allow it to directly hurt a human. Dr. Calvin finds a way to trick the robot into reviewing itself. She puts herself in danger, but not before ensuring the robots understand that if there's any radiation between herself and the robots, they would be unable to save her, even if they tried. Once the test is run, only the Nestor robot they were looking for makes a move to save her because it detected harmless infrared rays rather than gamma rays. All the other robots could not identify what type of radiation was being used because it wasn't part of their design. Whereas the modified NS2 had been through training at hyperbase and had learned how to detect the difference in radiation types. The robot, finding himself discovered, then explains that the only way to prove itself better than human is by never being found, and tries to attack Dr. Calvin so that she cannot reveal she found the robot. Black and Bogart apply gamma rays on the robot, destroying it before it can harm her. There you have it, a story about the short story Little Lost Robot by Isaac Asimov. And that was originally published in Astounding Science Fiction, reprinted in the collections of iRobot. I thought I'd recognize it from somewhere from 1950. The Complete Robot in 82, Robot Dreams in 86, and Robot Visions in 1990. Right, this is what we'll do. I'm going to go ahead and take check-ins from everybody who is out there who would like to check in. You don't necessarily have to have seen Little Lost Robot, but if you have, please let us know. And we will go through what we do every week, which is simply talk about the plot, about this story, which is only an hour long, Little Lost Robot, from 1962. Then we'll talk about the acting and characterization, which might be interesting. And then finally the special effects, music, or anything you may have forgot on the first two rounds but want to talk about. So we'll begin with check-ins. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, and did you see Little Lost Robot? We'll begin.
This is November 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill and Irving. Yes, I saw this adaptation and I read the story many decades ago.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas. I saw the episode, and yes, I have my copy of iRobot right here in front of me.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey. Jay in your Weatherford, I saw this episode.
Kilo India 5, Kilo Whiskey Golf, cruise in Arlington, and yes, I saw it.
Okay, let me go ahead and pause there, and I'll get everyone checked in. The usual suspects so far. I got N5BB, Bill and Irving. Yep, he saw it. NT5TM, Tony in Dallas. Yep, he saw it. KG5BZW, Jay near Rutherford. Yes, I believe he said yes. He saw it. KI5KWG. That's Cruz in Arlington, and he also saw it. Anyone else who would like to join us, please come with your call sign, your name, and did you see Little Lost Robot from 1962?
WB50ZL. Yes, I saw it. Name is Brenda.
Okay, I picked up one more. We got WB50ZL, Miss Brenda. She's in DeSoto, and yes, she saw the movie or the television show. I'm checking Echolink. Usual suspects have already checked in, so we'll skip that for now. We'll go ahead and start at the top and we'll go down the list in order. We'll start with Bill N5BB. So our first round is about the plot. So Bill, what did you think about the plot of Little Lost Robot from KE5ICX?
Thank you, Tom. This is N5BB. Well, the first thing to comment on is the plot is slightly modified from the original short story. They made the Dr. let's see, Mr. Black. They made Mr. Black a very bad person. He was angry. He didn't like robots. And he died at the end. Spoiler alert. In the original story, that did not happen. Nobody died. So, in one sense, this kind of broke some of Asimov's ideas about the story about robots not killing people because they had one kill him at the end. And there were some other plot points that were changed. Number one, they took out some characters and things like that. That was the major change I noticed was to Mr. Black. Most of the rest of the story was reasonably spot on to the original thing, except that the original plot had 63 total robots, 62 plus 1. Well, this adaptation had 21 robots, 20 plus 1. Anyway, I liked the story. I liked the idea. I remember when I read it many decades ago, the neat idea of how Dr. Calvin was going, how she was going to figure out how to determine who that robot was. I thought it was an ingenious little mystery story. And the kind of thing that Isaac Asimov loved to do. He wrote some mysteries also. The trapdoor spider stories, I believe is what they were called. So Asimov liked mysteries. So I liked the plot. What's about the plot? I thought it was interesting that they had vacuum tubes. Actually, you saw some vacuum tubes. The guy was actually handling a very large vacuum tube at one point. And, of course, they had big old computers because that's what they knew in '62. I thought it was kind of interesting, the fact that the story was originally written in and published in the middle of 1947 in a magazine, Break. It was originally published in a science fiction magazine, and then later it was, put in these various anthologies like I, Robot and other ones. And the interesting thing about 1947 is what happened in 1947. Well, late in the year, Bell Laboratories more or less invented the transistor. So it was kind of an interesting coincidence that this story was written in the same year that transistors were invented, which changed dramatically our ability to do computers and robots and all those kind of things. Because with early 1947 technology, you could build a positronic brain, and big computers were minimal. Same thing, but anyway. Let's see. In general, I like the plot, although I don't know if I like the changes they made to the plot. I thought the original plot was a little bit better. I didn't like the killing at the end. Well, that was bad. But they had to. I did like Dr. Susan Calvin, and I think she was portrayed pretty much like she was written. And of course, I liked the law of robotics, the first law of robotics. That's it. I liked it in 5BB.
Okay, thank you, Bill. You've wandered into characterization, but we'll come back and reaffirm that. See if you still feel the same way in the next round. NT5TM, Tony, you got to see it. What did you think about the plot for Lost Little Robot, KE5IC?
Good evening, Tom. The plot was reasonably faithful to the story, although, yes, in the original, the robot does not kill anybody. That was the sort of Mary Shelley stuff that Asimov really wanted to avoid in his robot novels. He didn't like the idea of the robots, somehow magically turning on their creators, so he was at great pains to avoid that. The robot sort of falls and clunks against Susan Calvin, but it's not really clear that it could have killed anyone. The plot in this had some annoyances and holes. The robots were, of course, very clunky, funny-looking TV things. I was very amused in one part of the episode where a robot that is spying on Susan and her assistant Peter runs away from them and outruns them. That is an impossible plot hole as presented in the show because those robots were just so kind of slow and waddling and shambling. They could not possibly have outrun anyone, including a penguin. I've seen tortoises go faster than that. Tortoises are pretty cool. No, that robot could not have outrun anyone. Likewise, there were these obvious Part 1, Part 2, Part 3 cliffhangers that they had grafted in, sometimes even with an echo effect. He's watching us, he's watching us, he's watching us. I guess that was to accommodate commercial breaks, but that impaired the very natural plot flow of the actual material with some little TV unnecessariness. Having seen a bit of Westworld, I was waiting for someone to shout seesaw motor functions, but that would have been an anachronism. One other plot hole near the end of it, once the other robots that were present at the trap where, only the guilty Eric they should logically have then intervened to stop the crazy robot from killing a character. That would have horrified robots pretty badly. But strangely they didn't. I think the writers just forgot about that because there was no gamma rays at that time. So it wasn't perfect, You know, it was pretty reasonable. It was definitely better than a lot of science fiction with, giant moths or lizards and whatnot. So it did try to bring some of Asimov's intellectual robot puzzles and murder mysteries into the mass market. So didn't like the commercial breaks. Thought there were a few holes, but they tried. It was pretty neat. NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. Well, we got 2 thumbs up so far, so we'll continue down the list. KT5DZW, Jay. Near Weatherford, what did you think about the plot for Little Lost Robot from 1962?
This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey on Echolink. There's a little bit of a problem I have with this plot, and that I thought that the Asimov's laws were explained a little bit better than the show had them. I mean, obviously they had time limitations to really go through all laws and whatnot, but I mean, as introduced in the show, a robot cannot allow any harm to come to a human. Well, that's there's quite a bit of ways that can happen with a human. Is gifted a huge amount of bacon, and eating all of this bacon will result in coronary artery disease, and the human will die maybe 20 years later, but it would have been 10 years or 20 years before he would normally have died or whatever. It did not explain at all where the reasonableness of cannot allow harm to come to a human actually ended, and that was a big problem I have with the episode. Because you get the situation like at the end, it's like, well, why didn't the robots come to the aid of the human that was being attacked by the other robot? I don't know. And I don't know. A lot of this, it feels. I know some of the ideas were probably fantastic for when they came out, but it just seems like, well, why wouldn't the robots do certain things and that would communicate to other robots, and that still would probably not disobey Asimov's laws as the other robots would have understood them to be. And I don't. I feel like I need more context, just how the whole Asimov's laws were kind of laid out in some of his stories and how they developed, so that I can have it make sense in this story. I don't. It didn't seem like the best ending. Like normally, I don't know. There's there's stuff in computer science lore about. You got the 2 guards, one that tells the truth, one that always lies, and like one of the things, the solutions is what would the other guard tell you, which means you always get a lie, because the truth sayer will tell what the liar will say, and the liar will just lie about what the truth truth sayer would say. And I felt like they kind of ignored those kind of, or maybe Asimov ignored it himself. It felt like there's probably a better way to do it than this really strange, okay, we're going to pretend to execute a human in front of you kind of bit. It was, I have a hard time believing the original story was that cumbersome. I don't know what else to say. I was kind of ticked off. So I'll just leave it at that. KG5BZW.
Hey, thank you, Jay. And next up is Cruz, KI5KWG. Cruz, your thoughts on a little lost robot from 1962?
KI5KWG. I enjoyed this. I really liked this. I was not familiar with the story, had not read it. The program was well done for the most part. We'll get into some characterization on some negatives I had on that. But as for the plot, I liked it. I've always been fascinated by the three laws. I liked that we had a logic problem that needed to be solved, and so you're playing the game too, trying to come up with your own experiment. I imagine all of us were doing that. I like the fact that, and apparently not in the original story from what the others have said, but I like the fact that we had a story about lost innocence, fall from grace, with creations where the humans were the creator. And in that same sort of line of thought, I've always been fascinated by ethics and morality, and so laws and how they react. Let me reset for you a second. So I was thinking along the lines where we kind of ended with this is, what are we teaching the AIs with these three laws that have been popular in sci-fi, when all of the laws are only about protecting us from them? And you look with the Hammurabi Code, I think that's the right word, and the Ten Commandments, they're about protecting each other and from each other. And, not the sins are about breaking community and breaking relationships. But for the AIs, we give them just protect us from you. And I think, well, goodness, the AIs don't get any morality. They don't get any ethics dealing with their own selves. So I thought that was interesting, and we kind of ended up going there, that they had seen what happens. They have seen evil amongst themselves and have to deal with that. So it's like, hey, I want the next installment of this story. That's pretty cool. So that's what I've got on plot. Back to Nat.
Very interesting. Thank you, Cruz. Next up is Brenda, WB50ZL. Brenda, your thoughts on plot?
This is WB50ZL. I had, of course, never seen this show or even heard about it. I was fascinated. I've read a number of the old robot stories, and I've always been fascinated with the laws of robotics. I'm not sure I buy into it. Things are just not always cut and dried. If I'm performing the Heimlich maneuver on somebody, does the robot know I'm saving his life, or does the robot think I'm hurting him? How is a robot expected to have judgment in all things? Or what if there's a Sophie's Choice situation, two people drowning, who does the robot save? They might burn out their circuits trying to decide how you save one and not save the other, if they're hardwired to make, to save people. But, it's an interesting idea, the whole laws of robotics. What are we going to do with these machines once we have gotten to the point where they can sort of think. We've got to give them some kind of code of ethics and morality, and that's really hard. And consider that human beings don't do so well with morality. Expecting robots to do the same. It's a good question. But I thought that the story was fascinating, that it covered the subject well. I liked the show. I liked the look and feel of it. It kind of reminded me of Doctor Who in terms of the music and the pacing and the acting and everything. Kind of had that feel to it, which I thought was kind of refreshing. Just old-fashioned entertainment, not the glitzy, flashy things that we have today that sort of distract me without. They take away from the story in many cases to me, and this was just a good story. It didn't need flashing lights. It stood on its own. So yeah, I'd love to see some more of these. Susan Calvin did a great job. Of course, I'm familiar with her from the stories, but they cast her really well. I had pictured her, but they did a good job of that. But that's characterization. So anyway, I enjoyed it. Back to net, WB50ZL.
All right, very good, Brenda. It sounds like we got at least maybe 4 thumbs up, maybe 4.5 there, I think. So far, so good. Okay, I'm at the bottom of the list. I'm going to go ahead and ask if there's any additional check-ins tonight on Afterglow Movie Net. We are talking about the 1962 Out of This World episode called Little Lost Robot, about Isaac Asimov's iRobot series, actually, or short story. It was written, I think Bill said 1945, but it was produced in 1962 as a 60-minute television program. Do I have any additional check-ins at this point who would like to join us? If you would like to join us, you don't have to have seen the episode, but if you have, that's even better. Please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, and did you see Little Lost Robot?
Whiskey 5, bacon, lettuce, and tomato. W5, BLT, Bill. Garland, yes, I did see the movie and read the story.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, shot him forward. Yes, I did see this.
All right, 2 more of the usual suspects have checked in. I've got W5BLT, Bill and Garland. Yeah, he saw it. KB9SOK, Sean in Fort Worth, he also saw it. So we'll start with Bill. We're talking about the plot, so we'll pick it up from you. What did you think about the plot for Little Lost Robot from KE5ICX?
I just loved it. It made me really sad that there wasn't more of these saved, and I'm really, I guess, kind of surprised that this is the only one in existence from the show. I love the plot. It did kind of remind me of some of the Ray Bradbury stuff as well. And of course, I grew up reading the Isaac Asimov and analog science fiction and fact. So it led me on a quest to find the story, and I searched online and got the story as well, which kind of helped me with maybe imagining some of the visual stuff going on with what they were doing. And so I love the plot. The whole law of robotics thing just fascinates me, and just how they. And yes, the story had a different ending, and so the other Bill had pointed that out. And so they kind of diverged a little bit there at the end, which was interesting. But yeah, overall, I love this plot and loved the book. I watched the show and then read the book and then watched it again. So that's all I've got right now. W5BLT, back to net control.
right, very good. Thank you, Bill. Next up is KB9SOK, Sean over in Fort Worth. Yes, he saw it. What'd you think about the plot, Sean?
This is KB9SOK. Well, overall, I did enjoy the story. Yeah, it looked like it could have been an interesting series. I've seen some of the others. Of course, as many of you have already mentioned, obviously this plot line has been in many movies and TV shows. And it's obviously a very cautionary tale, I think, to some extent. And it's becoming probably even more relevant today as we get closer to these AIs. You know, we are getting close to that point where probably in our future that this is something that's going to have to be something that we're going to have to really struggle with. What do we teach or what rules do we give to robots, and then at what point, do they become, entities themselves? So it's funny that this was even thought about all the way back in 1945, which is very interesting. And even back in 1945, they had some very forward thinking. One thing I found kind of amusing was when they mentioned the year that they started that space station was 2019. So obviously back in 1945, they thought by now we would be getting ready to start traveling, and visiting other planets and really getting there. Even though we are maybe one of these days going to make it to Mars. Excuse me. It's funny that they thought we would be there by now, and I think many of us thought we'd be further along as well, probably. But yeah, it's an interesting plot, especially considering when it was being wrote. Now, I do have a few issues like others with the plot. I do think there are some plot holes in this. I haven't read it. It sounds like maybe the book is better. Because the guy was just, so overly angry, but I guess it's more for the next round, the black character. But, I agree that there is definitely some issues with stories, and even there kind of towards the end, because the second test, they basically said the robots were communicating and warning, they were getting the warning and discussing it. So I was curious why during the third test, why the other robot didn't tell the other ones it was okay to move forward, that the gamma ray wasn't on. So I thought that was kind of a major plot hole. And then also, too, why didn't the robot save the guy in the end, which was another major plot hole. And I'd also think, too, logically, if they'd seen after the first test that that elevator wasn't going to hurt nobody, why would they be worried after that? Once again, they're supposed to have some AI and have some intelligence, and they'll determine whether somebody's truly in trouble or not. So, I do think there's some holes in it. Now, whether the book maybe was a little closer and had a little bit better detail, maybe explaining, maybe why they reacted better the way they did, might be interesting. I may have to go read this sometime because it sounds interesting. But overall, yes, I gave it definitely a thumbs up, even with the plot holes. I agree, too, with the robots were pretty rough looking. But when you have a good storyline, it's easy to kind of overlook that stuff as you get into it. And as someone commented earlier, I think it's Brenda about the Doctor Who series, the old ones. Yeah, the effects were rough, but for some reason it was just easy to get into the story because they had good storylines, and you could buy into it, and you did feel like you were there. So even though, the special effects were a little rough in this one, they did have, but it was just a good story, so you could get into it. And I laughed too about the zombie robots moving so slow, and then magically he got away. Thought that was funny too. That's one of the notes I made too. It's like, wow, that definitely was a miss overstep there. And I'm not sure why in all these old movies they thought robots could just, they had to do that sideways walk. But anyway, back to that. This is KB9SOK.
All right, thank you, Sean. Well, I think we've got a full house here. Everybody kind of actually enjoyed this story, which is great. Let me ask, we're at the bottom of the list. Anybody else want to join us this evening? We were talking about Little Lost Robots, the Isaac Asimov's story turned into a British science fiction TV episode. Anybody like to join us? Please come to your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. Did you see Little Lost Robots? Okay, well, let me let me give my comments. The great thing about being net control and why it's so easy is that I get to listen to everybody else's great ideas, and then I can either crib off of them or just expand upon them. It doesn't matter because I'm the last person in the group, which I kind of like because you're a bunch of smart people. I don't always pull everything out like you guys do. But one of the things that I thought was interesting, and maybe this is a departure from because of the way the writing was, is that in the teleplay as opposed to the short story thing, is that, they saw a murder, and it was in plain sight, and, the lost innocence, which was brought up earlier, how does that play out in the long-term part of it? Because we know for a fact that they had consulted at some point and discussed what each of these exercises, each of these tests represented, and they were modifying their behavior because of it to a certain degree. And then so they had to become, the researchers, and had to become somewhat secretive about what they did and how they did it. I thought that was quite interesting in a way as well. Another thing that was interesting about the story is, where was I going? Now I can't remember what I was going to say. Well, let me go on to the next point. Maybe I'll remember the second point. I had it, and then it went away. But this was brought up about, and this is, I remember taking this, learning about this in an ethics class. Let me reset. It was touched upon here, which is about, how do you determine, danger? How do you make it work? And I think in one of the lines that they said in the thing is, we keep the laws simple because then they're clear cut, and that is that humans are always going to be saved. Well, one of the things that you can't do is that the situations are a myriad of different things, and how would you stop something from happening? As I was going to say with the logic story, if you have a train and it kills 5 people or 2 people, depending on the switch, and the people on the two people on the switch is a family member or something, and the 2 family members are going to get killed, that's fewer than 5, but 5 strangers are saved. Would you prefer just killing the 5 strangers and saving your 2 family members? I mean, those are the type of decisions you have to make. Now flash forward to today, and we have, I don't know, a Tesla that can self-drive. We're approaching, as someone mentioned, we're approaching this conundrum. What do we do? How do we program a Tesla to drive appropriately between 2 lines in a road? And what happens in 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, 12.0, 10 years from now? Will a Tesla and every other car like it be able to properly function? Will it go and slam into a wall somewhere and save 10 people? Will it slam into 2 people rather than 10 people in order to save the 10 people? That question is becoming a very real thing. And I personally find that whole AI thing a bit scary. The thought that you would have humans go ahead and program that in, and we're not very good at that sort of thing. We're still asking those questions and then creating artificial intelligence in such a way to make that happen. I don't know. Maybe HAL 9000 can help us answer that question. Oh, wait, he killed people. By the way, Isaac Asimov was there when it's the premiere of 2001: A Space Odyssey. He was not happy with HAL. Right, we're going to go to the top of the list. The next section we're going to talk about is characterization. There weren't a lot of characters, but there were a few. So we'll start at the top with Bill, N5BB. What did you think of characterization for Little Lost Robot from 1962?
This is N5BB. Thank you, Tom. Well, as you already mentioned, I mentioned a little bit of this, but Dr. Susan Calvin was really the main character and kind of the moral force of the whole thing, which is the way the stories were originally written by Isaac Asimov. And I thought that the actress, Aubrey, I'm forgetting her name, I thought she did a pretty good job. She played it straight. She played Dr. Calvin as a rather straightforward woman that did what she thought was correct. She was very firm in her beliefs. wishy-washy stuff for her, and she didn't back down from a fight either. And I thought that was a nice, strong female lead character there, and I thought that was portrayed just right. And the general, everything else about her character kind of suited. Remember, this movie came out in 1962, so it kind of suited the look, the clothing, and everything. Of course, it was 1962 kind of stuff, and I thought it was just about right for the time and for the story and everything. I always, somebody else mentioned, I thought it was kind of funny that I thought at one point I got the idea that they thought this was occurring in 2039 because the interstellar project had started in 2019, and that was 20 years ago. So the year that this movie was set in was 2039. I believe the original story was actually set in 2029 by Asimov. Be that as it may, we're there. It's like 2001 was 21 years ago. So we're there. Anyway, and they made a comment about, we are in the 20th century or something. I remember that being said somewhere in that. Now we're in the 21st century. They make a comment something being a 20th century kind of thing. Anyway, the other characters. This is in 5BB. I guess the Little Lost Robot, which was NS2, was his name, actually. He was a character as well as the other 20 robots. And I agree, these were ugly robots. Should have been done better, but I mean, it was a TV series. 1962. That was about, you notice they didn't have 63 robots or 62 robots because they just couldn't get that many. 20 was pushing it for them. And so I think, given their limited thing, it was fairly acceptable, but what do you expect? 1962, made for TV little thing. Production. In Great Britain, for of all places. I mean, look at Doctor Who back then and all the other old shows back then. This thing had, this show had reasonable production values considering alternatives. Let's see, what else? The other people that were there beside the robots, there was the general who played it pretty straight. To me, he did not overplay the part. He played it pretty correct. However, Mr. Black, I did not like that character, as I mentioned earlier. It was totally different from the character in the book. Mr. Black in this story, the way it was rewritten, was very anti-robot. He was the one that said for the robot that got lost, which in the original story was kind of a offhand remark, but in this one, he became vengeful. He was nasty. He wanted to kill the robots. He really hated them. And so I think that the author of this screenplay, maybe that's one of the reasons why he had the robot kill Dr. Black, as a little moral story there, which Asimov did not have in the original thing. Totally different. Asimov would have never have done that. So I did not like the way that Dr. Black was characterized and how it was acted or directed, probably. I didn't like that at all. I thought he was was a very stupid person. He should not have had a position of importance at that starbase, or whatever it was, the hyperbase near Jupiter. Let's see, what else? Whatever his name was, the other character, the scientist kind of guy, the mathematician, I guess, who was you could tell there, especially near the end, he was a close personal friend of Dr. Calvin. They had a connection between the two of them. Was kind of in the middle of all this, and I thought that was played okay. There wasn't a lot required. There's no backstory on any of this, but it was just a short story originally, and Asimov didn't have time to do a lot of backstory, and this little TV movie didn't have time to do backstory. So I guess that's what I think about the characterization and the acting, directing for that matter, Tom, inside BB.
Thank you, Bill. Very interesting. Next up is Tony, NT5TM. Tony, your thoughts on characterization, and we can toss in their acting, for that matter, from KE5ICM.
Tom, thank you very much. I want to quickly give credit to a couple of other people. Bill was completely right about how overdone Mr. Black was. Yeah, that was a weak character because it was such a stereotype. Both Brenda and Jay touched on the idea mentioned briefly in the horrible Will Smith movie, I, Robot, that the three laws open themselves to a lot of interpretation and problems. Is eating bacon okay? What about CPR? I've often joked to Erin that, I will break all of her ribs if I have to. How would a robot judge that? Well, high-quality CPR is actually pretty injurious. You can rupture the spleen and break their ribs, and they're sure going to need surgery. But hey, they're not dead. So how does a robot handle that trade-off? That's not clear. So I'd like to thank the folks who touched on that, because that is a tough thing. Asimov really liked that. He wanted to get his stories into an interesting, more intellectual level versus just, the clumsy machines turning on their creators and so forth. And he wanted us talking exactly like we're doing now. This, I think, is the kind of net Asimov would have wanted. So I just think that's totally awesome. The Susan Calvin stories are great. I'm probably going to reread an Elijah Bailey story tonight. The Robots of Dawn is one of my favorite novels of his. So I'll at least start that before I go to bed. So we've got great characters here on the net, but how about the characters in the story? Susan Calvin had weaknesses, and I think they overdid her hysterics a little bit in this episode. But it was the 60s, and you do have to give somebody some shorthand, understandable weaknesses. By and large, I have to agree. I think Brenda said this. I didn't know what Susan Calvin was going to look like, but it turned out they cast her really well. I really also liked how the General and Susan were a little bit attracted to each other because they were both so decisive and ruthless and such good leaders. I actually thought that was very cool and not like the usual very superficial, oh, look, she's played by Megan Fox, I must be attracted to her, kind of stuff we get in contemporary Hollywood productions. So, not a lot to say about the other characters. There weren't, a whole lot there. The robots were kind of clunky. I had in my notes, too, very Doctor Who. So I think we were all thinking about that. And, really just for Susan, who was our biggest character, I thought they did a great job. So I'll end there. NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. Next up is Jay, KG5BZW. Jay, your thoughts on characterization and the acting, for that matter, from KE5ICX.
All right, this is KG5BZW. Brief note that's kind of not a little bit off topic. Tom briefly talked about trains. Well, selecting rails and whatnot. There's actually a term. It's called trolley problem, and it's actually kind of funny to me because it seems that we have, as a society, have become collectively aware of such problems, because there's a kind of I've seen some streamers. There's a website called Increasingly Absurd Trolley Problems, which kind of shows the whole problem of trolley problems themselves. But at the same time, they exist. They do serve a purpose. It's just you can go really in a over the top direction with them. But anyway, I wanted to bring that up. Mr. Black. I'm sure that the TV producers they wanted to have a character that the audience would hate with him, and I found him really strange in that. Of course, granted, I may be conflating, because they never really said that the robots don't have any feeling or anything like that. But this guy seemed to project a lot of emotion onto them at the first. Now, I just found that odd. But also at the same time, I was kind of glad they got rid of. But I felt a little bit manipulated by the TV play to think that. And I think some of the problems with the show that I have, it was, in fact, that it was a TV play, not that TV plays are wrong, have issues. It's just that some of the stuff that's exposition kind of had to happen in places where you would not want the other robots to hear, and it kind of that's just another plot thing. But anyway, I guess the other thing I wanted to say, because I knew there's a few decent characters, but I think other people are going to cover them. The interesting thing about the robots not knowing who had said what. So I'm now imagining there's some sort of a Reddit server where each robot signs in with their own anonymous username or whatever, and each one kind of comes in and gives their opinion or whatnot, and only the Reddit server knows who is what and whatnot, because it kind of doesn't really make sense if it's robot-to-robot communication for nobody to know who said what. It almost have to go through a third party, like a server of some sort, which is kind of a weird thing to talk about in a story that's written in 1947, since the concept of servers is kind of a few decades away. But anyway. I mean, I don't know. I think I'll stick with what I said, because the interesting characters, I think other people have better things to say. I just wanted to say stuff about other stuff. KG5ECW.
All right, thank you, Jay. Next up is Cruz. KI5KWG, Cruz, your thoughts on characterization and the acting from KE5ITF.
KI5KWG, first I want to thank Jay. I'm sitting here playing absurd trolley problems. I'm on level 4. Uh-oh, I got to kill myself on this one. Anyway, I forgot to mention 2 comments I had on the plots. Both brief. Plot hole number 1, program the 21 robots and you're done. The other one is basically in the form of a question to the rest of you all. What the heck was the oxygenated rose about? No idea. All right, as for characterization, the bad guy was over the top. Everybody says so. I agree. But all the others were believable, even likable. But likable wasn't the problem with the bad guy. The motivations didn't make sense. I noticed at the very beginning in that opening scene, it seemed like none of them had their characters down. They were stepping on each other's lines. It came off as if they had just rehearsed it to death and were delivering those lines, and I have the words robotically, to each other, and without really trying to identify their characters other than with the dialogue itself. But after that scene, everything seemed really, really well done, again, except from the over-the-top bad guy. That's all I've got. KI5KWG, back to net.
All right, thank you, Cruz. Next up is Brenda, WB50ZL. Brenda, what are your thoughts on characterization for Little Lost Robot from 1962?
This is WB50ZL. I liked all human characters. I thought they could have done more with the robots, given them some personality, or had them do more than just kind of in there. It was a little creepy to watch them. They were ugly robots. And I don't know, was this just a budget thing? I should think if you spend a great deal of money making a robot, you ought to make it at least aesthetically pleasing so you could, stand and look at it. These are just creepy looking. I don't know what those eyes were about. They look actually non-functional to me. I'm not sure. Does the robot need 2 eyes or more or 1 or a camera or what? I don't know. It comes from the way humans look at things. I would give a robot a lot more than just seeing the visible spectrum. But anyway, I did like the look and feel of the characters. I thought Susan Calvin was perfect, and a little romance, or sort of a dancing around with her and the general. I thought that was kind of cute. And perhaps they developed that in later episodes. It's easy to hate the bad guys. It's easy to love the good guys. All that go on, just like most shows. But Calvin was definitely my favorite character, no question. Back to net, WB50ZL.
Thanks, Brenda. Next up is Bill, W5BLT. Bill, what did you think of the acting and characterizations for The Lost Robot from KE5ITF?
No, I do want to say that my wife and I get into this discussion all the time about, appearances and looks, and I have a bunch of electronic stuff sitting on my nightstand, and she'll tell me that, and I'd say, yes, but it's functional. And so I think the robots, they're just supposed to be functional, maybe. But, no, I don't know. That's interesting because I didn't get the appearance of the robots really from the book, the story, or the movie. So it's interesting you guys bring up how they looked. I like the main character, the Lady Susan. It's kind of interesting because in the story, I got the impression that she didn't care what happened to the robot, but in the show, did at the end, and so at least that was my impression, and so I thought they did a good job with that, and I think ending of it. Hopefully everybody's seen it, but just the way they did the ending, I thought that was, was kind of interesting, and I kind of felt for the robot and character. I think her name was Susan. So it was an interesting ending, and the way they did it on both of them, and I really like just the characters, and some of the stuff. I love some of the movies today, but it goes so far into special effects and not enough dialogue, and so I really enjoyed this one. That's all I've got, and I'll sit out the next round because I've got to get ready to turn in up early tomorrow, and I was up early today, so. Enjoy everybody's comments as well. W5BLT, back to net control.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you for participating this evening. It's always a pleasure having you here. Last but not least on the list is KB9SOK. Sean, what are your thoughts on characterization and TV acting for Little Lost Robot from 1962?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Well, I agree with what everybody has said. Yes, the acting in it was a little bit over the top in a few spots, but not as bad as many other movies that we've watched from that time era. So I'll give them credit. I think actually it wasn't quite as bad as some. But yeah, I agree there. But I think without a doubt, the doctor was their psychologist was the strongest character. We do learn more about her and her history, and obviously she was the one that did create the laws, and just as obvious, even though something maybe in the book she didn't care about the robots, but she clearly did, especially with the ending. She could care less if the human got killed. She's worried about the robot, and so yeah, it's very obvious that she had worried about the robot. So yeah, she was the strongest character, probably the most interesting. The rest of them, I think, were passable. They were okay. I agree. The oxygenated rose was a weird throw-in. I'm not sure what makes that so special, and why growing it in space, being oxygenated, is going to make it better than what's on Earth. So yeah, that part seems kind of weird, other than just for something to lead to the end for him to give her the rose to set up for their future meeting. So yeah, it was a little weird. But yeah, on the topic of the robots, I really think that the face, because obviously the budget, I really think that was just a plastic mold to something else. Some type of pan or something. I don't think that was really actually molded for this show. I think they just found it in a junkyard someplace and said, hey, this is cool. Let's get a bunch of these. But there's been a lot of debate about that. Do you want your robots looking human? Or do you want them to look utility? There are several Japanese robots now that are very human-like facial expressions, and most people are extremely creeped out by that. But yeah, when they look very plain, they can also be scary because they look lifeless. So it's like trying to find that happy medium. How do you give them life? And usually some of your favorite robot movies, they do have some kind of facial expressions or some way to tell their emotion, because it just makes you feel for them. So that's, I think, why they do that in a lot of the better special effects. I think Battlestar Galactica, the original, might hit it perfect with the scanning eye back and forth, that the scanner would be more practical, and plus it made them look scary. So there's been a big debate on that. But, I'm not going to dwell on the characters anymore. I think they've been pretty well covered. So, back to net. KB9SOK.
Thank you, Sean. Just jotting down some notes for myself here. Let me go ahead and ask for the bottom of the list. Does anybody else want to check in to say you're out there and listening? You don't have to have seen tonight's television program, Little Lost Robot, but if you're out there and you want to say hi, now's a good time to do so. Please come with your call, your name, and did you see Little Lost Robot? Right, hearing none. My comments are I was kind of surprised, and other people were aware of the Susan Calvin character. I'll admit I have not read Isaac Asimov in years, and I feel like I've betrayed science fiction by not having done so. I've forgotten a lot of the stories. The last thing I actually read or actually listened to was part of the Foundation series, the first book, which was quite interesting, but it is long literature. It's endless. I'm not sure how to describe that, but in any case. But the Susan Calvin character is repeated many times in both Asimov's work and in others. There are, according to Wikipedia, 19 different references to her, either as an homage or as a direct character from the Isaac Asimov story. So I think that's kind of interesting in a way, because that she relates to the robots more than anything else, better than people, and I think that's quite fascinating in a way because of the nature of her job and how she handles things. So this intrigued me. I think maybe I'll go back and read the story. I probably read this thing when I was in junior high school many years ago. I did read I, Robot, but I don't remember a lot about it these days. So you guys, especially Tony, have made that something that I want to do. Let's see, what else do I want to say? The robots themselves, you don't have a lot of characterization, obviously, because they look like tin cans. And can you be empathetic to such a character without having any, eyes or mouth or anything? And I was thinking, well, wait a minute. I have a Roomba that I watch with curiosity as it goes and cleans the floor. And I have not given this one a name. The old one gave up, and I gave it a burial and a wake. And people from around the neighborhood came over, and we said goodbye to it. So the new one doesn't have a name yet, so I should do that. But my pool suite does. Wally's been around for years and done a loyal job, and he doesn't have eyes. But I always think about him, affectionately because he's cleaning the pool while I'm not. So how can you not love a robot like that, even though he doesn't have any, or she, for that matter, have any facial characteristics that would suggest that? Another thing that kind of, and this is sort of an off thing, but and it's kind of frightening. People have made comments about the fact that robots were frightening, or could be frightening. And I had a visceral reaction to that. I don't know if you've looked at YouTube or watched some videos on robots that can actually move. And there's some scenes where they are putting them through the tasks. They're usually four-legged, sometimes they're two-legged. And I kind of had this visceral reaction when somebody goes over to demonstrate something and pushes on the robot, especially the four-footed one. And they kind of push over to the side, and then they right themselves or correct the action done by this person. I don't know about you. I feel like Susan Calvin in this case. I'm looking and going, well, that's mean to do. If I were that robot, I'd come up and kick the guy in the kneecaps or something. But it's interesting that art imitates life, imitates art type of thing, because we're kind of living through that now. We're making that transition. And I find that quite fascinating that we're kind of living through all these things from this 1945 story. And it doesn't matter, you know, the speculative fiction part of it actually has some scientific fact. It's got some emotional relevance to the story, and I think that's great. And maybe that's why this story is somewhat timeless, because we are living through that. We do have a relationship with robots and an emerging and probably evolving relationship with robots as time goes on. So I thought that quite interesting, and I think that's my key takeaway, is that, hey, we're living this thing. And I thank you, whoever it was that mentioned that. It really does strike true. Okay, let me go to the top of the list. This is our final round. Well, we got 9 minutes left. How about I do this? Let me go ahead and ask, since we are coming up at 12 o'clock, anybody who has any final comments, let's do that, because I think we'll be here much later than we might want to be. But if you've got something you want to say, special effects or music, it wasn't much, but maybe you've got something to say about that, or any final comments about tonight's story, Little Lost Robot, from the British television series, whatever it was, I can't remember now. At any rate, Out of This World, that's what it was. Please come with your call, and I'll go down the list.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
Maybe I'm glad that I did call this. Anyone else? I got NT5TM. Tony, anyone else want to make any parting comments? Please come out. Tony, you get the final comments. Go ahead.
We had a wonderful accidental coincidence tonight. I tried to pay attention to Skynet. People work really hard on Skynet, and it's really interesting. But Billy distracted me. She mentioned the documentary Good Night, Oppie. I think it was Billy. And so I started watching that, and it was really engaging and intriguing. And it reminded me there were great cartoons on the site XKCD, X-Ray Kilo Charlie Delta, about spirit and opportunity that were very moving and each very endearing in their own way. And it's kind of neat, though, because if you stay out of the uncanny valley, Spirit and Opportunity were pretty adorable robots, despite being heavy and made of aluminum and having wheels. But hey, they had 2 eyes and a hand. So some of our robotic explorers have definitely stayed out of the uncanny valley and helped warm our hearts as they go off to other worlds and do geology for us. So yeah, she was. If it was Billy, she gets all the credit, and if it was someone else, I apologize. But yeah, Good Night, Oppie is pretty dang cute. NT5TM.
Oh, thank you, Tony. Yeah, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch that as well. I thought that was an interesting comment. Here it fits in very well with our conversation. Well, I, too, had kind of a same reaction to a DVD that arrived at my house here a few days ago. I grew up in Detroit, and one of the things that was most loved in Detroit was the Boblo boats, the St. Clair and the Columbia. And I have a pen and ink actually in my dining room of the Columbia. As she looked, it was a steamship that was over 100 years old that plied the waters of the Detroit River and headed down to an island called Boblo Island, which was an amusement park, and had to go by boat to there. And I remember a lot of affectionate things. Well, they had anthropomorphized the two boats in the story, and they had narrations in that of each of the boats who's actually speaking, which seems kind of silly, but it's to attach a lot of emotion to those darn boats, like I have. I have a T-shirt. You've probably seen it if you're on my Facebook page. I love those things, and I remember them very, very well. And you can do that with inanimate objects. And imagine something that can actually react like a human or like an animal or something like that. I think that's really interesting. Okay, well, with that, let me hang on here. I'll tell you what's next week because I've forgotten already. Please stand by. All right, for now, for something completely different, something a little different. Next week, I guess you could call it science fiction because it never happened, but it could have happened. We're going to watch the movie Failsafe from 1964. Just for something a little change of pace. Real change of pace. We have seen Dr. Strangelove. We went to which was kind of its alter ego that came out the same year. I read both those books back to back when I was in junior high school because I thought it was fascinating. So that movie will be available. You can find the link on the Afterglow movie page. Just look under, I put them now under guides, G-U-I-D-E-S, guides. Look there, you'll find the list of movies, and I've got a number of them. I picked up some new stuff recently and put them in the list. But I thought since we had these, I'd already assigned these movies a couple of weeks ago. Go ahead and do it. And the following week, we'll have a Christmas movie of sorts, which will be Airport on December 10th, followed by A Christmas Carol with Patton. Carol, who the hell is it? Geez, I can't remember people's names. At any rate, the 1984 version, and then there's Christmas on the Life Pod from 1993. That'll be on the 24th. So I'm going to go ahead and say we'll have a net on the 24th. I don't know how many people will get, but please consider dropping by. It might be a short net, might be a fun net, it might be, who knows. Every week it's always interesting how many people show up and why. There should be a study on that or something. So until next time, don't forget to, you can go to Facebook, Afterglow Movie Net. Afterglow and movie is 2 words, and you can find that information and sign up. Or if you want to send me an email and you're not into the Facebook thing, send me an email at my call sign, Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-ray, KE5ICX at yahoo.com. I will send you the links to the movies. These are all available online, and it's legal. So by all means, you can. Sometimes they have ads, sometimes they don't. I want to thank everybody for checking in tonight. It was a really fun discussion, and it was fun finding this thing. I didn't know it was out there until a few weeks ago. I thought, well, this could be interesting, and it turned out it was. So this concludes our week of our month of a television series. We'll do this again. This is the second time we've done this. It's fun looking for these obscure series and finding out that they're pretty darn good. We had a good run on this series this month, for the month of November. So I'll say 7-3 to everybody. I'll catch you next week at this same time, same bad station. I'm going to go back and watch Lost in Space. I don't know which episode it is tonight, but I'm sure it will be great. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. We'll see you next time. This is KE5ICX. I'm clear.
It's got to be better than The Night Stalker. You just can't watch that show. Inside BB.